All right, hello. Yes, I'm Trisha G. I'm very happy to be here. I got an email some time ago by the organisers saying, do you want to do a virtual presentation in Melbourne? And I was like, I could actually come. I'm going to be there. And so here I am. But I was really lazy and I was like, can I just give the same presentation I'm giving at Yao? And they're like, no, because some of you guys are going to Yao, so they don't want to see the same thing twice. So instead, I'm going to give you my newest talk, which is also my least favourite talk, because Java 9 keeps changing and the IntelliJ support for Java 9 keeps changing. And so every time I come to give this presentation, I've only given it a couple of times before, everything's changed and nothing works. So just to let you know. Also, when I gave this at Devox a couple of weeks ago, it was supposed to be a 50-minute presentation and it was over in 30 minutes. I was like, all right, that's it. Bye. So what I've done is I've crammed a boatload more stuff in here to see if it'll take up more time. So there's more things that could possibly go wrong. And if we still don't run out of time, we have loads of spare time, you can ask me questions about IntelliJ instead. That's my preamble. By the way, yes, I'm Trisha. I work for JetBrains. I'm a technical evangelist. I work mostly with IntelliJ IDEA, talking about Java specifically, but generally looking after the JVM side of IntelliJ IDEA. And I also work sort of with Upsource, which is our code review tool. And Upsource is really cool because I get to talk about like bigger things like design and clean code and how terrible this code is when you're looking at code. So that's kind of my job. If ever you watch any presentations from Oracle about what's happening in Java 9, they'll say, oh, we're not really, don't buy anything based on what we said, because it's really hard to decide on when we're going to release anything. So I thought I'd take the piss out of that and put that there. So this presentation is split into a couple of sections. The first part is primarily around, well, the middle part really is primarily around the Java 9 features that most developers will be using, and it's kind of IDE agnostic, but there is a whole section on IntelliJ IDEA support for Java 9. So if you're not an IntelliJ person, that's fine, I forgive you. And you can snooze your way through the second part, that's fine, I won't mind. So let's go ahead and look straight in at Java 9. So whenever we talk about Java 9, we're generally thinking about Jigsaw, because as you saw, that's the reason why Java 9 is going to be late again. So this is the big thing, and it is a big deal. As developers, we kind of know that refactoring code is a big fat deal, especially when you've got something which is as old, 20 years old Java is. It's old and it's grown and nothing's ever been deleted. So trying to manage that and modularize it is tricky. So I feel sorry for the people. But that's all we ever hear about when we hear about Java 9, Jigsaw, 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 yay, whatever. We tend to think, oh, but if I start using Java 9, then things like anything which is in a Sun package, I won't be able to use that anymore, and unsafe has gone away, and I don't know if I use that or not. And if I start using Java 9, my whole application might break. And this is certainly going to be in the minds of people like the management, if you like, because they tend they don't read hardcore technical documentation. They'll just be hearing about Java 9's a big fat deal and that things might break. So this is kind of going to be considered to be a risky thing, certainly from a non-technical point of view, I think, and also probably from our point of view. And at the end of the day, I don't really care about modularization anyway, so like, who cares about Java 9? So in fact, perhaps we might care about waiting for value types and some other more exciting stuff which is going to come into Java 10 and so forth. And besides which, who's using Java 8 right now? Oh, a good chunk of you. So I should ask, who's not using Java 8? Some sheepish hands. I'm so sorry. Well, that's good. I mean, you know, in the past, it took us a while to kind of migrate onto various versions, and Java 8 is only 2 years old, so that's pretty good. But I have a feeling that a lot of people will be thinking Java 9, who really cares? Let's wait for Java 10. It's much more exciting. So Java 8's got lambdas and streams, and that's why we're using it, right? But Java 9 is a lot more than Jigsaw, and that's kind of one of the things I want to demo to you, because otherwise this would be a really short presentation. But first off, I want to kind of debunk the myth, if you like, or at least address head-on the idea that using Java 9 might break everything to begin with. So we will take one of my projects, and we will try to compile it with Java 9. Let's open up a more interesting thing. So if we just build this, let's have a look. So at the moment, this is running under Java 1.8 and language level 8. So if we build this, we should see it's going to work. So that's not going to be terribly exciting. This is a project, if you've seen my Java 8 in Anger talk. In fact, this is the code I'm going to be building up at the hour presentation. So this is kind of one of my existing projects. It's not like code I put together just to demo Java 9. This is real code that works. And it compiles perfectly fine under Java 8, obviously. Otherwise, my Java 8 in Anger talk would be a bit of a disaster. So let's start by trying to just compile this with Java 9. My control key doesn't work, by the way, because my 1-year-old tore it off the keyboard the other day. No one ever told you that parenting was basically life on hard mode. Nothing works the way it's supposed to. OK, so let's move it up to the Java 9 early access release. And we'll use the language level of Java 9 as well. Rebuild everything. And let's see what breaks. So there's this one thing here. This is something that a lot of people didn't really realize. Previously, you could actually use underscore as a perfectly valid variable name on its own. Not underscore something, underscore on its own. And in Java 9, that's not going to be valid anymore. What's funny is when most developers find out that it's going away in Java 9, they're like, oh, but that would be really useful. We should start using this. No. So that's not going to work anymore. So we're going to rename that to something more sensible. So what else is broken? And so again, like I didn't throw together this code base to break on purpose in Java 9. It happens to break. I was using something which I knew was deprecated, so naughty me, and I didn't really know what to replace it with. So I was using the base 64 encoder, and that's gone away in Java 9, so you can't use that anymore. However, there is, of course, quite nicely. Can you read this all right at the back, or should I put the font size up? You're OK. Great. So this has been replaced, which is a good thing. Base 64 get encoder encode string. And then basically all your code will compile. So you can do a replacement of that. That's fairly straightforward. And then everything should compile. Did I optimize my imports? No, I did not. So there will be anything in your code base which is using any of the sun, basically any of the hidden files like sun.misc and sun.misc unsafe and things like that, then they're not going to work in Java 9. But you shouldn't have been using them anyway. And a lot of them have got replacements. So that's kind of fine. So there will be a few things that will break if you move to Java 9 and don't do anything else. But I think it might depend a little bit on your code base. I don't think it's going to be quite as drastic as people are afraid of. And your compiler will catch that straight away. So it's not like something which is going to trick you sometime down the line. But of course, Java 9 early access is available. So do download it and run your code against it, because you want to do this before Java 9 comes out so that you can get your code ready even before you're using Java 9. So that was using the early access release build 143. And if you go to, I can't remember the website, but it's basically look for JDK9. You can download it really easily. I have a link at the end of this to a web page which has got all my links to all the resources, so you can download it and take a look. This web page is super useful. It's basically an enormous wiki page of all the gotchas that you might come across if you start compiling against Java 9. So all of the packages which might go away, things like the underscore no longer being a valid name. And I think there's some steps that you can take in order to help migrate from like one pattern to another. So that's super useful. Now let's get on to the kind of easy to use features. This is where I talk about Java 9 stuff rather than IntelliJ specific stuff, but of course I'm going to do it inside IntelliJ. The first thing that's kind of interesting is new methods on the Streams API. Have we been using Streams? OK, so most of the people who are using Java 8 have used Streams a little bit. The Streams API, I'm a massive fan. I think it's really cool. It took me a while to kind of get used to the idea of this, this way of telling what you want rather than how to do it. But once you get used to it, it's a really nice way of doing stuff. However, there are some slight, I'm not going to say failure cases, but there are some cases which are not easy to deal with the existing version of Java. For example, infinite streams. Has anyone been tripped up with infinite streams? This is, I have a piece of code here which is reading, it's reading a file. Each line is a piece of JSON. And it's not really infinite because it's just going to go until it reaches the end of the file. But there's no way for me to stop this in any way, shape or form. Once it gets going, it's kind of that's it. It's kind of game over. The only way to stop this service is to basically Control-C the whole thing. And I have a test to prove this because I like writing tests. So if I run this, basically I'm going to call stop, but it's not going to stop. It's just going to sit there spinning forever. And that's kind of one of the failure cases of infinite streams. Like if you do a for each on an infinite stream, that's the end. You basically tied up that thread. You'll never get to the end. Okay, so it stopped because it reached the end of the file, but it didn't stop because I tell it to stop. In Java 9, you can now tell it when to stop. So I can say take while, and I'm going to give it a bit of a cheat, and I'm going to say take while running. And I'm going to create a field running, which is true, and I'm going to set this field to false when I stop. Oops. Now when I rerun my test, we should stop straight away. And it does. It stops straight away. So we've got some new methods on streams which are designed to help you deal with things like infinite streams, particularly stopping. So take while basically says, keep doing this stream until some criteria is met, or you can do the opposite. You can say drop while. So just kind of like ignore everything in the stream up until you meet some criteria. Now I've kind of cheated because I've got this running thing which is set from outside. But obviously the idea is to say something like s equals something until some criteria is met. And then you can start reading the stream. I haven't tried it, but I'd be interested to see. I assume you can do like a take while and a drop while, so you can kind of get some kind of middle of the stream. So that's really useful for infinite streams. There's another couple of bits and pieces on streams, like there's slightly new ways of iterating. And by iterating, I mean like giving it an initial value, incrementing the value, and then ending that. So there's some nice things with streams that you might not really, it's easy to miss those because it's just a few methods on the Streams API. Let's get rid of that because that's not compiling. Again. Collections convenience methods. This, I think, is my favorite thing on Java 9. It's like a really little thing, but it's just going to make life so much easier. So let me show you an example. What are we looking for? Mood analyzer. And again, this is not code that I created in order to make it easier in Java 9. This is code I had already. I happen to have a map, which I have to initialize statically. I want to set all these values in this map because it's kind of like, it's just going to be a constant forever. So I have to put it inside this static block in order to do that. And we've all written code a bit like this. And now what I can do, I don't need to do that anymore. I can say map.ofEntries, and I can use my favorite IntelliJ feature, which is column selection mode. Map.entry, and then let's just replace all of those. Oops. With a comma. Replace, replace, replace. Don't go too far or nothing will compile. Okay, so now I've actually done it in a much more sensible way. If I had fewer entries, so I've got something like 19 entries there. If I had fewer entries, I can do this even simpler. I can say map of, and I can say up to 10. So I can just have basically key value, key value, key value. So I can initialize my maps much easier. It's not quite as pretty as the groovy way of doing stuff or some of the other languages, but it's a lot better than what we had before. Yes?
Is that map immutable?
Yes. Yeah. I don't have my Javadoc. It creates the immutable list, immutable map, immutable set, in this case the map. I haven't looked into it in much detail, but yes, it's an immutable map. So that's quite nice. What have I done now? And similarly, if we look at oh, I see what I did. So if you want to create a set in the olden days, i.e. today, what you have to do to create a set of entries is you create a new hash set with an arrays as list because there's a nice convenient constructor which takes a collection, but you can't initialize that really easily. Now what you can do is you just basically say set.of, and that's it. Okay, so that's way easy. You do the same thing with the list. You can say list.of, but list.of is something like 2 characters shorter than array list, but it's not a big deal. So if you wanted to, you could say, instead of arrays as list, you can say list.of as well. So you have these really nice, useful helper methods for collections. So I think that's going to be one of the things, one of those tiny little things which just makes a difference when you go to Java 9 and then you go back from Java 9, you'll be like, why can't I do this? It's just ridiculous. Yes?
New inspection in IntelliJ?
I expect there will be an intention or a inspection to convert from one to another. I expect that for the array list one, because I don't think there's a lot of difference between arrays as list and list.of, I think that will be an intention. So you basically turn it into it if you want to. But I think for things like hash set, I fully expect there to be an inspection for that. In fact, because obviously I was jet lagged, I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning last night thinking, must raise a ticket to make sure those inspections happen. But yeah, I fully expect IntelliJ will be able to do that for us. Do you know what? I don't have my script, so I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. So that's collections convenience methods. I've put the JEPs up here, so if anyone's interested, they can go and look at the details of the JEP. Milling Project Coin is a bunch of little bits and pieces that are supposed to... So Project Coin came in Java 7, and it had things like the diamond operator and loads of really little things which just made life a little bit easier. Milling Project Coin is the things they wish they'd done in Project Coin but didn't really get around to. The thing that I think is most interesting in Java 9 is private methods on interfaces. Now, that seems really ridiculous, and certainly in Java 7 that would be completely pointless because it's an interface. It's supposed to be, you know, a public interface. But now Java 8's happened and we've had default methods and static methods. Suddenly, private methods on interfaces make a lot more sense. So let me give you an example. I'm looking for a tweet parser. So here, for example, this is an interface, but I have a couple of static methods. I mean, really, these could have been anywhere. I just chose to put static methods on the interface because they didn't really have a home. They didn't really belong to a domain object. They just kind of were helper methods. And they do a very similar sort of thing. So I could now extract this into a method. Let's call it get value for field. IntelliJ has detected another fragment that can be replaced. Move that down. So now I can turn this into a private method. And that's kind of useful. So it's not mind-blowing, but now we have actual behavior on our interfaces. It's super useful. So we have less copy-paste coding. Oh, I'm just too OCD. I'm just going to have to inline this. It's just driving me crazy. And I have to rename this. It's not text field name. It is just field name. Has anyone spotted the IntelliJ 2016.3 feature, which is my favorite feature from 2016.3? Parameter names. It's brilliant. I love it. Especially because it shows you when you've put a really stupid parameter name.
Is it only for libraries or for your code as well?
For your code.
Because I only spotted for libraries, like it knows on mine.
No, it just works on your code. You can enable it. You enable it in the settings. You might want to check the blacklist. So there's a blacklist of various methods which you... So particularly if you've got library code where they've got stupid parameter names, you want to add things to the blacklist. So you might have some methods on the blacklist. Okay, next up is updated deprecation. This is probably not super exciting to loads of people, but because I was working on some library code when I was working for MongoDB, we wanted to deprecate a bunch of stuff. And you can deprecate things, but it's very difficult to sort of say, this is really, really deprecated, don't use it, versus, you know, it's just not cool, just please don't do it. So updated deprecation in Java 9, I think this ties in nicely to some of the Jigsaw stuff and some of the fact they're doing a lot of cleanup of warnings in their own code. I think they were saying the OpenJDK now compiles with 0 warnings, which I'm like, well, that's good. But they had like millions of warnings on various things. So by having the updated deprecation, it kind of really lets you figure out which bits need to be cleaned up and which bits are just like, well, Java never deletes anything. So for example, let me have a look at my... So if I've got a deprecated class like this, then now I can say when it was deprecated, so since 1.9, this is a string, so I can say like since forever. And then I can say for removal. So there's a difference between deprecation of this is not best practice versus deprecation of like the Sun classes of they're going away. You have to move away from this. I really would have preferred it if they'd called this doomed. I think that would have been way better. But they said for removal. Well, you can't win them all. Updated deprecation, process API updates. So this is one of those things I crammed in here today, so it's not something I know very well. Oops. So I think the most interesting thing about this is, so let's uncomment this because this doesn't compile in Java 8. Probably the most interesting thing is a really easy way to get the PID of your current process, which is really useful, especially when you're running batch processes and whatever. So I think especially now we're sort of in a microservices kind of world and we're doing a lot more DevOpsy type stuff. I think it's really useful for us to be able to have a handle on the process that's running and do some things with that. So some of the other things we can do is, let's just import all of this. So I can do things like, oh, for goodness sake, I shouldn't. So I can use, I think Process Builder was around beforehand, but Process Builder has been updated, so I can do things like I'm going to start a pipeline of, I want to do ls, and then I'm going to grep for PDF files. And then I can do a bunch of stuff around futures, which I haven't looked into very much, but it uses streams and it looks cool. So if this is kind of an area where you struggle at the moment with running command line things and getting a handle on things like process IDs, which traditionally Java's been very bad at, and I've usually used Groovy for things like that, Java's getting much better at this for Java 9. More concurrency updates. Oh yes, so is anyone using like reactive streams and things like that? Josh is. 2 more people. 3 more people. So we are discovering more kind of patterns of the ways that we might want to work in terms of applications, certainly in things like publishers and subscribers and managing streams and things like that. So Java 9 is kind of taking that on board and has created some interfaces, no implementations, but interfaces to kind of encourage standardization across this space. So one of the things you've got is, let me have a look for, so I happen to have in this code base a message handler, message listener. But really, what I think this would be cool is if this extends subscriber. And then let's implement those. So subscriber, if I implement those. What did I just do? That's not what I wanted to do. What did I do? Yes. Yeah, that's great. No, because my, never mind. It's Command L. What's, implement methods. Control I, capital I, same thing. All right, so I happen to have a message listener which has an on message, but I'm going to change this now so that I actually, I'm going to have on next instead. I'm not sure this is super easy to understand. I'm still going to have this as a functional interface because I want anything that implements message listener to be implementing the subscribers on next instead of my own personal on message. And the reason for that is just because maybe I might want to move towards a more standard way of doing things. So my subscriber has an on subscribe, not surprisingly, an on error, an on complete, and on next. And on next is like basically on message. And there's also, let's have a look at this. So there's a subscriber, there's a publisher, a subscription, a processor. So if you're kind of following some of these patterns, then especially if you're doing some of the stuff in your own code, then you probably want to look at these interfaces and see if you want to use any of them. It's certainly, I think it's a good idea if this area is moving towards some standards because it is a common set of patterns that we're starting to see. I think reactive Java, the next version is going to be using these interfaces, I believe.
RxJava 2 just released, it has that.
Right, RxJava, yes.
Reactor has it.
Cool. So yes, you know more about that than I do. So yeah, so this is really cool. The fact that we're going to get this into the language for Java kind of fairly early on, I think that's quite a nice move in terms of standardization. There's some other stuff around concurrency. There's quite a lot of new stuff on completable futures. as always, there's loads of interesting stuff in concurrency, but it's kind of one of those things which is A, really boring to demo, B, very dependent on what you're trying to achieve in your own project. So definitely worth having a look anyway if you are doing anything around concurrency. What's next? Jigsaw. Fine. I've managed to put off all the time. So I have a project, a Jigsaw project. I was wondering whether I was going to be really adventurous and build a brand new Jigsaw project from scratch, because it always goes wrong and it's always fun to do that. But we arrived quite late, so I don't think I'm going to do that. This is the code that's on the, if you go to the Project Jigsaw homepage, there's a short demo that you can do. And this is basically the code that's part of that short demo. You end up with 2 modules. You can't see that super well, but one module has a main class, and it uses world, and world is in a different module over here. It's like the world's most complicated Hello World application. No, that was the Java EE one, wasn't it? That was way more complicated. And so when you're creating your modules in, I don't know if any of you really looked at Jigsaw yet, because it does kind of still change and move around, so I think some people are still holding off before they have a look at it. If you are creating your own module, then you need a module info.java class or file, and that kind of says what your module is, and if you depend on any other modules, or if you are exporting yourself or any other modules. And that's it's not very complicated, but the thing is that the file name is module-info.java. So you can imagine how well IntelliJ took it when you created a file like that. It's like, I don't know what this is. And then the fact that it starts with the word module, it was just basically freaking out about the whole thing. And it kind of runs when it compiles, but IntelliJ just gives you red squigglies all over the place. In IntelliJ IDEA 2016.3, we don't give you red squigglies. Don't give you much more, but we don't give you red squigglies, and we do give you code completion, so I can do things. Oh, and also I found the other day, so let's get rid of that. I can actually do a new, oh no, I can't. It says that it's supposed to be a new module info class. I've clearly not set this one up properly. But it's got a template to give you a module info file, and you can do things like, you get code completion. It's not super exciting, but given that I spent about half a day trying to get just this code to work, it's a little bit fragile. Things are changing quite a lot. Jigsaw does keep changing the way that things work, but also, we just keep changing the way that we're going to work with Jigsaw. So this is very much a work in progress. If you are interested in working with Jigsaw, I highly recommend you play with it with IntelliJ and let us know any problems that you have, because we're not really using it internally yet either. So until people can give us real war stories, we can't really give you the sort of support that you're looking for. So what is supported at the moment? In IntelliJ IDEA 2016.3, which was released on Tuesday last week, we have the syntax support for module info.java, like I said, and the code completion for module info.java. And it will compile multi-module projects. One of the things that I spotted, though, that was non-obvious to me is, although this module info says that this com.greetings module requires the org.astro module, IntelliJ doesn't really understand what that means. So you also need to set up the dependencies in your modules. So I need my com.greetings to depend upon org.astro, otherwise it still doesn't work. So it's quite fragile at the moment. And on top of that, I thought I had it somewhere. Your Jigsaw modules have to map one-to-one to your IntelliJ modules, otherwise it's just not going to work. So it's very early days for the module support. So, and some people were saying to me, I didn't see any release notes for 2016.3 saying that you support Jigsaw. Like, because we didn't really want to tell anyone. It does work. It doesn't work brilliantly well. So if you are using it, let us know. We do have an issue where we're tracking a bunch of issues around Jigsaw. It has a bunch of child issues. So if you are using it and you stumble across anything, please, please, please do let us know. Put something in here or open up a new ticket to say what you'd like to see, because we can't build what you need if you don't tell us what you need. In IntelliJ IDEA 2016 point something, sometime next year, we will have automatic generation of module info.javas based off presumably your IntelliJ IDEA modules, and vice versa, IntelliJ IDEA module structure recognized on import. So either you import a bunch of Jigsaw modules and it creates your IntelliJ modules, or you have IntelliJ object modules and you can generate Jigsaw modules. So you'll actually have a more official integration between the two. By the way, don't ask me how that's going to play with Maven and Gradle, because I really don't know. I am really worried about how that's going to interplay. And support for JLink artifacts. So that's kind of where things are going to start to get more interesting as well. So our support right now really is basically a bit of code completion and doesn't fall over when you're trying to use modules. But to be fair, Java 9 isn't out yet, so I don't feel too embarrassed saying we don't support Java 9 properly yet. JShell, the REPL. I think this is probably one of the most interesting things about Java 9. Has anyone seen anything about the REPL yet? A few of you. Have any of you played with Java 9 at all on like the hack days or anything like that? Okay, cool, that's great. So the REPL, let me bring up the terminal. So I think the REPL is really interesting, particularly because I've been doing Java for nearly 20 years, and I've mostly been doing just Java. I've done Basic in the past, and I've done Pascal and a bunch of other stuff, but basically I've been doing Java forever. So I'm like, who needs a REPL? I mean, seriously, just write tests. It seems way better to do that. So, but I think that having a REPL is going to encourage us to work in slightly different ways, and I'd be really interested to see how that works. I also think REPLs are really good for bringing in beginners, because at the moment we have to write a class with public static void main and all the rest of it in order to just try something out, and it seems a bit heavyweight. So without further ado, let me try and find my, where's it gone? Oh, never mind. Right, Java 9 home. I hate Windows. Bin, JShell. That's why I was supposed to have an alias for this. All right, never mind. I know, normally it kind of knows what I mean, which is fine. But instead, you're just going to get a bit of a glimpse on my notes, where I say, I don't know what I'm doing, don't tell anyone. Oh yeah, there we go. So different, wasn't it? So yes, so this is the REPL. So I can do things like I can type hello, and it assigns that to a variable 1. I can do things like 2 plus 2. Not only does it tell me the answer, but it assigns it to this variable. Or I can say, like int age equals 21. I don't need semicolons, because who needs semicolons these days? They're so old-fashioned. I can do things like, I have a series of commands, so I can do things like, I can list all my variables, so all those things I just created. I can create a method, so I can say public string. The only thing that I really hate is you don't get to type the IntelliJ shortcuts in the REPL, and I have to type things the old way. Then I do need a semicolon. I need to close off my braces, and then I have a method name, and I can call name. Can I call it like that? Can I call it like that? Okay. So I can create methods, I can assign variables, I can play with stuff, I can get the history up. So I could even potentially make a script out of some of these things, or I don't know why you'd want a script in Java, but you know, I can do these sorts of things. And I have some tabs and some code completion. So let's have a look at methods. So it's quite nice. It's more than just, I'm just going to run a line of Java. So it's not quite as pointless as I originally thought it would be. Like, well, who wants to run a line of Java? But there's quite a lot of really nice things in here. There's a link at the end to a whole workshop on the REPL, and it's quite nice. It's well worth working through, because the REPL doesn't take much to start up, and you start playing with it. You're like, oh right, I didn't know you could do these sorts of things. Now, as you can see, IntelliJ IDEA doesn't support like inbuilt support for the REPL. I'm opening it inside the terminal. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I really hate working with a Windows command line, and the IntelliJ terminal is a little bit easier. 2, it makes it much easier for me to copy and paste stuff between like a Java file and my REPL. And 3, I don't think there's a 3. I'm using IntelliJ and I'm demoing IntelliJ. But our goal is really to have something similar to, so we have a Groovy console. Let's have a look at the Groovy console. So we can run things in here. I haven't done Groovy for ages. So you kind of run stuff in here and you get the output at the bottom. And we have really nice support for the way that SQL works. We have like a console for SQL, and you can kind of copy paste stuff in there, and you get loads of really useful stuff in the bottom, and you get code completion, and you get fine usages, and you get all the stuff that you expect from your IDE inside all the SQL stuff. So our grand vision is the REPL will be like that. So the REPL will be sort of fully integrated like that. It's not at the moment. I'm not sure if we've even started to work on it. But our aim is to have like this full integration. One of the reasons why it turns out it's much more difficult to support than I thought, than I assumed, is that the REPL is kind of its own language in its own right. It's not just Java, because it kind of has this idea of being able to assign to these variables and miss off semicolons, and it's not just as simple as just running Java from the command line. Which is kind of, you can tell that because if I try and create a scratch file in Java, and I type something like, I can't even use my shortcuts inside a Java scratch file, because what I need is a class, which is called some class, and I need to close it, and I need to have a public static void main, and then I need to say, okay, so even if I'm doing like a scratch file in Java, I need to have a full-blown class and full-blown methods. And the REPL, you don't have to do that. So it is kind of its own little ecosystem. And our goal as well is that our scratch files, you'll be able to run those in the REPL rather than having to have a full-blown class to do that. But that's just me going, yeah, we're definitely going to do this one day. I don't think work has started on that. And the REPL is really nice in its own right, so it doesn't need full-blown IDE support at the moment, in my opinion. The only thing I really miss is I'd like to be able to type S out and get all my live templates inside the REPL, which you can't get right now. So yes, the code I was kind of vaguely typing was from this REPL tutorial. It's really interesting. It's really quite detailed. There's loads of cool stuff in there. Again, we have an issue for this. It's really, I'm kind of embarrassed to put the issue number up here, because you'll look at it and it'll basically say, yeah, we should do some REPL stuff. It's an umbrella issue, so if you've got any ideas for how we should support the REPL, then please put some stuff in there. Cool, it's way more than 40 minutes, but I'm going to wrap up now. There's loads of things in Java 9. There's loads of little bits and pieces. I think there's no real unified theme, which is why it's kind of difficult to sell it to developers. It's not like lambdas and streams and all the stuff that comes with that. There's loads of kind of like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool and this is kind of cool. So I'm personally interested in HDPI graphics on Windows, because that's what I have on my Surface, and Java doesn't run on this thing because it's not really well supported for HDPI on Windows. So I hope that Java 9 will allow IntelliJ to work way better. HTML5 Javadoc. Welcome to the 21st century. Javadoc search. So now you can do, I'll actually show you. I've got this open in Internet Explorer because I was feeling really suicidal at the time. There's a little search box and you can type something. You're supposed to be able to do camel case search, but it just says no results found all the time. But apparently that will work when Java 9 comes out. But this is interesting, actually. This is on download.java.net. This is the Javadoc for Java 9. So it's quite nice to get a preview of what's available. So there will be Javadoc search, apparently. The default garbage collector is now G1, which for most people probably seems interesting, but is really not that interesting. And then if you really care about it, then you probably don't care about this because you've already tuned your garbage collector to within an inch of its life. So it's kind of interesting to note that the default garbage collector will change. If performance matters to you, then you should probably check this out, make sure that's okay for you. Remove deprecated GC combinations. If ever anyone has tried to tune the garbage collector, you'll notice there's like 1 billion different flags, and there are certain combinations of those flags which were deprecated in Java 8, and they're just going away in Java 9. And if you try and start Java with those invalid combinations, it won't start. It's not that it will ignore you, it just won't start. So again, if you care about performance and you're tuning your garbage collector to achieve that, you need to be aware of these things. Oh, that needs to go down. Oh, good, excellent. That's all I got. Any questions? Not at this point in time. Well, I'll be around. I'll be around too.
Quick one.
Yeah.
Just going back to the collection helpers.
Yes.
When you do a set of or a list of, are you getting an array list and
You're getting the immutable, when you say immutable, what's it called? You say immutable set or immutable list from the, I tried to look this up because I knew someone was going to ask me this question. When you do, like, is it collections.immutable?
Unmodifiable.
Sorry?
Unmodifiable.
Unmodifiable. Unmodifiable collection or unmodifiable list. Then whatever that gives you, that's what you're getting. Why I don't have Javadoc, I don't know. But yeah, that's what you're getting. Yes, so let me just put this link up. I haven't updated this page recently, but it's got links to most of the stuff. So all the other links that I posted in the slides are all available from this page. The slides are available from the page. I will try and update it with the new slides. And yeah, if you want to play with things like the REPL or if you want to play with Jigsaw or anything, all the links are from there. Thank you very much.